You said three modes by which the crisis mortgages can be resolved. The third one being eviction, and all of them to the advantage of the banks. You contemplate no general write-down for ordinary homeowners in serious negative equity, whether or not they are in arrears. And there are many people who are not in arrears who are in deep hardship trying to make their monthly payments. Now, Governor, in 2010, you were instrumental in bouncing the Fianna Fáil Green Party government, admittedly hapless, punch-drunk and bedraggled, but you were instrumental in bouncing it into going for a bailout and the Troika programme. A bailout not of the taxpayers in Ireland or the Irish state, incidentally, but a bailout of the big European institutions and bondholders who had gambled wildly in the Irish property market, with the consequence of even further grinding austerity that is still grinding down our economy and our people. Now, you were prepared, along with your colleagues in Europe, that the perpetrators would be underwritten on the backs, on their private debts, on the backs of the Irish working class people, but nothing whatsoever for the victims, i.e. the mortgage holders, the young generation of workers who were blackmailed into paying these horrific speculative prices for the profiteering that was going on. Now, apart from, and by the way, a split mortgage, can anybody contemplate the vista of people for the next 40 years, into their 70s, into their 80s, having these debts hung around their neck? Apart from the morality, however, isn't it clear that with the economy still bouncing around the bottom, this is a huge drag, that a programme of write-down of to the current value of people's homes, and therefore a write-down of the monthly repayments, isn't that how we overcome this problem in a global sense, and incidentally release billions which will go into the real economy and help to bring it back? Why don't you contemplate that?
Well, look, let me take advantage, first of all, of your question to repudiate the idea that in some way I bounced a government into doing something that was bad for the country. I didn't bounce anybody, but I did encourage what I regard as an action which was in fact protective of the provision of public services, albeit on a constrained basis. And that any other action, for example, delay until things got even worse, would have constrained the government even more in the current years. And I firmly believe that, and I think that there's a tendency to reinterpret history. In fact, the government of the day took their decisions with their eyes wide open, and my influence was only one of many. It was obviously the right thing to do. Now, whether it was the best thing that Europe and our other a part of the solution of the wider debt crisis in Europe, could there be a better solution of that crisis? I think there could. But in terms of what's available to Ireland, I think all of these years we have been working on a course that, no matter what your political perspective, in terms of the aggregates, is the best course and allows the best resources to the people of Ireland, because it allowed that additional borrowing over these years. Now, you talk about money being made available for restructuring of banking debt, and as I think it was Deputy Humphreys, or maybe it was Deputy O'Donnell, was pointing out, very large sums of money from those amounts that were borrowed as part of the programme have been set aside to enable the banks to absorb those losses that will inevitably occur from the mortgage crisis. And our attempt is to get them to move faster, to recognise that, and to create the sustainable solutions which will in fact cost. Sorry.
But Governor, they come in here, resolutely say there will not be debt forgiveness, as they call it. I don't call it that. And I'm saying to you, you were prepared to underwrite a policy whereas the billionaire bondholders were bailed out. on the backs of the Irish working class people, but you won't contemplate such relief for those who are their victims. I asked you to come back. This is my last shot, so I want you to take that. Just on the more macroeconomic issue, the national debt is about 120% of gross national product. The annual payments, you may confirm, on interest are about €9 billion this year. Or give us the exact figure. How much of that is accounted for by funds borrowed for the bank bailout? And finally, Cahir, look, Governor, the Troika programme is supposed to be finished in a month or two. The Irish economy continues to bounce along the bottom. Growth is minimal. Austerity has had a devastating effect. Will you give an absolute guarantee today that in 12 months' time, or in 2 or in 3 years' time, the financial markets will not look at this country and say they are incapable of meeting their payments, we will not advance further funds, or we will put interest rates to massive heights, and that the country will be forced into another bailout with massively punitive austerity policies? Will you say that that is absolutely ruled out?
What I'll say is that the path of adjustment, which the government has committed themselves to and has maintained up to now, is the best chance of not only getting the debt under control, which is coming under control, this should be the peak year for that, but also for getting to a growth path when people understand that the adjustment has been concluded. That's why I'm not in favour of postponing this adjustment, and it could only be a small postponement in terms of the budgetary arithmetic. Get to the end of this adjustment as fast as possible. That way confidence can return domestically, people can see light at the end of the tunnel, the growth can come back, and that combination of discipline and growth is what will ensure lenders and everybody that things are under control. And I listened to Ashok Modi, a good friend, and I agree with an awful lot of what he says. And the only difference, I would say, is my view is let's get the adjustment over with as soon as possible so that we can get that upturn. Whereas he's saying maybe we could try and get the upturn without the adjustment, and I don't think that would work.